Welcome back to Pro Football Addiction. Let's talk a little bit about this Ravens-Bills game on Sunday. Obviously, a ton of storylines, a ton when you look at the MVP race and how that factors into the way that these two quarterbacks will play. Kyle, is it a little, obvious to just say that whichever quarterback plays better is going to win, or is there maybe a little more to this one?
Yeah, I mean, I get the temptation to lean that way, right? And it could play out that way, but going into this game, looking ahead, especially in playoff football, right? Depending on the location of games, weather can play a big factor, and they're expecting big gusts of wind in this game, frigid cold temperatures, potential for snow. So, especially with both of these offenses, despite being led by MVP performing quarterbacks, uh, you know, lacking high end receiving weapons, it could end up being a ground and pound game, right? That's more about establishing that threat on the ground and punishing the defense over the course of the game. But it could go either way in that regard. You got to like both these guys to be able to show out even through the weather conditions and make plays with their legs and their arms. So yeah.
Did If both quarterbacks play to a stalemate or closer, do you lean one way or the other, having an advantage, non-quarterback play considered?
Yeah, I mean, going back to that running theme in like a cold weather game, right? The Ravens are the number one team in the league this year in yards per carry, and on defense, allowing the fewest yards per carry. So, if it comes down to who can run the ball better, it's hard not to like the Ravens. Both of these offenses have those MVP quarterbacks who do a lot of work with their legs, creating yardage and scoring touchdowns. So, both of them can contribute in that way. But it's hard not to like the Ravens with Derrick Henry. That offensive line's been bullying people all year. If it comes down to that as the deciding factor in this game.
How much do you buy into home crowds in the NFL compared to like a college football, like in the Southeast, being a little
I
bit
mean,
different?
I
How
think
much
I
do you
think
buy into that?
I think it depends on the teams. It depends on the cities, right? I think teams that have to go play in Miami. I don't think they're worried about that, right? But if you're rolling into Philly or in this case Buffalo, in the cold, in that rowdy home environment, there's not a lot of visiting fans wearing the other team's jersey at Buffalo on this weekend, right? So I think that could have some impact. And I saw something earlier that this is the first. The Bills are an underdog at home against the Ravens, which is a bit surprising considering the season they just had and the fact that they're playing at home. But that also speaks to the Ravens and just how strong they are right now, right, in all facets of the game. So I think that the home crowd could play a factor in it, but you got to like the mental toughness of the Ravens led by Harbaugh to be able to show out through that. So we'll see. But
Probably the biggest question mark in this one could be, will we get playoff Lamar again, or will he kind of elevate and play like he has through much of the regular season and putting up an MVP
yeah, I
caliber
mean,
type season?
and that's been kind of a hang up for Lamar in his career, right? As he's had these, could be his third MVP campaign. Obviously, Josh Allen's favored to win that award, but you can make a case for Lamar's MVP this year. It would be his third. He's never had that playoff success, right? Uh, Now, part of that in the past, I think you can put someone on the offense they used to run under Greg Roman. Uh, Todd Monken's done a lot to really open that offense up and make it, I think, more difficult for good defenses to defend. I think what used to define Ravens offenses was they were really set up to take advantage of undisciplined defenses with a lot of misdirection, with a lot of pretty simple, RPO concepts, things like that. This offense feels a little more like a real NFL offense to me. I think they beat teams in a more organic way, and so at least in theory, I like Lamar to show out better in the playoffs than he has in the past. But then you throw in, like we already talked about, the weather in this game, the visiting. Lamar's only played 2 away games in his whole playoff career, right? So most of their games have been at home, and he still struggled. So you put him on the road in Buffalo in the frigid cold with high winds, it could be tough to see that translate. And for both of these guys, right, we're talking two of the best quarterbacks of this generation, of this era of football. Uh, you know, I always think of it that quarterbacks build their bank accounts in the fall, but legacies are built in January and February, right? And Mahomes has had all this success and won multiple Super Bowls to go with the MVPs, and both these guys are ready to take that next step. And I think that's both of their focus is getting to hopefully go to KC next week and represent the AFC in the playoffs, and I think we could see it go either way. But it's gonna be. I think this game that we've got coming this weekend might be the best game of the playoffs. So
Yeah. We talked a lot about Lamar and just your thoughts on him. Can he rise to the occasion? Can maybe in Monken's offense they play a little bit better than they have in the postseason? What are your thoughts on? I mean, all credit to the Bills too. Like Josh Allen's been phenomenal this year. Is your expectation that he would probably play pretty well against a pretty good Baltimore defense?
yeah, I mean the crazy thing about both these guys, right, with the MVP battle they've had this year, with the this big playoff matchup coming, is that neither of them you can't pick out a top probably 15 or 20 receiving option at any position for either of their offenses, right? The Bills got a hold of some help this year with Amari Cooper, but he hasn't done that much. Keon Coleman, who I was excited about coming out of Florida State this year. He's made some plays, but he hasn't been that consistent threat. But Allen's still just been chugging along. They got one of the best offenses in football, and it's built, almost entirely around what Allen can and can't do. Obviously, James Cook is a great player, but I think if you take James Cook out of that offense and put a mediocre running back in, I don't know if they're missing much of a beat. But you take Josh Allen out, right? Like with that lack of receiving weapons, is that running game enough to carry them to what they've done? I don't think even close, right? So, I mean, Allen's been a cheat code all year, doing it with his legs. Very few interceptions. He's not putting the ball at risk like he has in past seasons that we've seen him. Producing the great plays he's put up while also putting his offense in danger a lot. He's erased a lot of those mistakes, right? He's really learned when to take those chances with the football, when to pick his spots a little more carefully, and it's hard not to like Josh Allen in any game against any defense at this point in his career. And at home this weekend, I think he's going to show out in a big way.
Do you have a lean in this one? Obviously, you mentioned them being a Buffalo being a 1-point dog at home, which is kind of crazy to think about. But do you think that they win at home? Do you have a pick in this one?
I mean, I'll say that Lamar I think has been a polarizing player. You get a lot of cracks on him throughout his career while he's been having these MVP caliber performances. I've always loved Lamar in his game. I love Josh Allen. They're two of my, as far as other than the teams that I care about, two of my 5 favorite players in the game today. And if I had, sitting here, if I have to pick, you got to like Buffalo at home. It feels like Josh Allen's really paid his dues. That brutal overtime loss to the Chiefs a few years ago, where the Chiefs scored with like 15 seconds left to tie it, and Allen never got the ball back. Like, I think I like the Bills this weekend, and it's tough to not like them as a home underdog, especially if you're looking at it from that standpoint. But it wouldn't surprise me a bit if the Ravens show out, and Derrick Henry has himself a Derrick Henry day, and Lamar is running all over the place and making the crucial throws when he has to, and they come out victorious. So we'll see.
Yeah, I kind of like the Bills. It's kind of, to me, it's until Lamar shows me, I have a hard time believing.
That's fair. No, that's fair. Like, you got to prove it to me first, right? Yeah.
But he absolutely could. Like like this could be the one. Like, I don't, if there was ever a time, this will be the one we remember. So, anyway, we'll probably both be wrong and Baltimore win just because we picked it like that.
Right,
but,
right.
Give me the over. The over is interesting. We didn't talk about this, but 51.5 points. For a game that's going to be like a feels like temperature of 0, like that.
It feels like, I mean, for these offenses, it's not a high number, but it's clear that Vegas doesn't buy into the wind. They don't buy into the cold. They're expecting both these offenses to roll. So, I mean, the under hit on every game in the first round except for one, and it barely got there with Texans Chargers. It's hard not to like the under in this one for me. But in general, moving forward on the show, I'd say a good rule of thumb is if you bet against me, you're going to come out profitable. So, I like the under. Probably means we're due for a big shootout. So
yeah, life's too short to bet unders, and
right.
so like I have it is hard for me to watch games when I've got the under.
Yeah,
like, I hate
the same way. Yeah,
the idea of cheering against points just seems counterintuitive.
Yeah, especially in a game where you don't have a specific rooting interest, right? And you're just
Right.
cheering. You feel like you're almost cheering for like a less good game. Like,
Yeah, I want to see a bunch of punts. Well,
yeah.
yeah.
Maybe the play here is like tease the number down and go over, right? Like,
Yeah.
that could be the move.
Yeah, give Buffalo the full 7 and tease it down to whatever that would be, 50, 45. So
Yeah, 35 or so. Yeah.
hey, we broke down all 4 games. If you enjoy this content, hit the subscribe button and check out some of our other previews for the divisional round weekend. Appreciate you tuning in to Pro Football Addiction.